My journey in the gaming world began really early in my life, probably around the age of 5. At the time, my family owned some 6th gen consoles and also some handhelds. The most obvious ones to point out are the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. If you've watched my videos before, you know this era is something I am really passionate about, with games I may mention later in this video. I also owned a Game Boy Color and I even had a bunch of DS's. These devices were pretty much the staple of my childhood. Games that I genuinely never wanted to give up on. Games that gave me a well-appreciated distraction from real-world problems. For these consoles, I had a pretty decent collection of games, and if I sit here talking about them, we're gonna be here a while. I also owned a Nintendo Wii, and even though my collection for it was significantly smaller, there was still a solid amount of games I was happy to choose from. At the age of 12 onward, my parents bought me a laptop mainly for homework usage, but in the years to come, I would use it to further develop my love for video games. Eventually, I would reach the age of maybe 14 or 15 and own a Wii U, the console I would often use to play an even smaller amount of games, the most common being Wind Waker HD and the first Splatoon game, and with the latter title I genuinely fell in love. Now I should clarify, this might not be an accurate chronological timeline of my childhood and teenage years, but these are just parts of my life I remember. Now, it's about time I shared the start of my love for PC gaming. I would often watch the videos and streams of a fellow YouTuber known as Unoriginally Chris LPs, who I mainly discovered through his playthrough of BFBB. Whenever he would broadcast to his channel, I would often see a familiar face in his streams. A dude you may know on the internet as Emperor Zarakar, formerly known as Zarakar Gaming. Me and this interesting fellow would become great friends through our mutual appreciation of the well-known SpongeBob game. This is roughly around the time when I started using emulators such as Dolphin and Visual Boy Advance for myself, but soon discovered PS2 emulation through this new friend I made on the internet. At this point in my life, I wasn't able to utilize the power that PCSX2 had to offer, as my laptop was not able to handle anything like that. After this point, I would explore the many possibilities emulation had to offer, and one way or another, we end up in the present day, where I am a lot more knowledgeable on what kinds of emulation software exist and how they come to create the experiences I love. So now you know where my love for all of these concepts came from, and sort of know how it started. I personally really love emulation, and it's honestly one of the best things I feel like I can do with my gaming PC. While I would probably never use an older generation console ever again, I can definitely see why some people would prefer that experience over a piece of software that has the potential of ruining the overall enjoyment of a game for the player. There are some very good reasons why some people stick to the original console option. As a console player, you can buy the game from anywhere that has it available and is guaranteed to work out of the box. And while emulators are also capable of this, there are times where some emulators run into trouble with specific games. A decent example that comes to mind is the Jack trilogy on PCSX2. Until more recent updates, this game franchise had trouble with shadows, textures, and slowdown, which for some people might ruin their overall experience. Another reason for being a console player is that some people might prefer the feel of the device or system they're using, like with a DS or 3DS. With consoles, you can also play modified versions of games on hardware through the use of soft modding the device, although depending on the mods for these games, it might not be able to handle it. There is also the emulation side of things, and as someone who is a member of Team Emulation, I'd like to give my thoughts on why I prefer them and even why I think they are better, and potentially even some downsides. For starters, some emulators are very easy to set up, and you can even use most of them for free. All you have to do is get some games on your PC and you can start having fun. However, there are also those that require firmware or BIOS from that specific system, so that you can make everything work as best as possible. At this point in time, my gaming PC is pretty decent. This allows me to handle PS3 and Switch emulation a lot more, and games like the Simpsons game run a lot better as a result. What some people absolutely adore about emulation is the fact that games can achieve even better performance than their console counterparts. With emulation, I can run games at higher resolutions and use filters and other graphic settings to change the visuals in a way that we prefer to see them. As a massive fan of Yuzu, I do like to play some titles that are locked to 30 FPS, but thanks to the emulation community, there are mods that that allow me to unlock that frame rate and achieve a smooth FPS. Crash Nitro Fueled is a great example of this, being locked at 30 FPS on the Switch. Some emulators achieve the FPS increase through the AR codes and even Gecko codes, which can be used to even change the aspect ratio of a game that doesn't originally support it. A final comment I might add about emulation is that you can very easily play older games with friends online that don't have those capabilities through the use of Parsec or other streaming software, or through the use of the emulator's respective online features. I also very much appreciate emulation for allowing me to play mods for some of my favorite games, as Dolphin and other emulators makes the installation process so much easier. Now obviously this is a very different video for me to make, but emulation is something I genuinely love. I love seeing the progress that emulators can make, while also being part of the journey they go through to become better and a lot more stable for the future, and even the feats they manage to achieve by increasing their list of playable games. Thanks to emulation, I can record footage with ease for the sake of creating content. I even used them in this video. For many years to come, I can't wait to see what the emulation community can accomplish and how optimized they can be for their players. Thank you very much for watching this video. It means a lot to me that you made it this far. If you'd like to see more content like this, or perhaps see me review some games that I love or even dislike, you can let me know by subscribing and leaving a like on this video, and even leave your comments about your thoughts on emulation.